Hey, everybody. How's it going? Oh my gosh. We've got some audience out there. And I'm Vivian. I'm really excited to be here. And we've got about 7 minutes to go before we actually launch. And it's really exciting. So, hi. Hi. I wonder if who's on? There's John. Hi. And there's Matt and John. Tea. It's an Irish play. One must have tea. So we're just going to hang out here for a few more minutes until it's actually time to go. And what do you mean? You can't see me? You can hear me, but you can't see me. Really? I can see me. All right, I'm going back out and I'll come back. That's odd. Matt, can you see me? Okay. Everybody else can see a black screen with a whirligig. I would reboot your computer. Lee can see me. Hi, Lee. The director's in the house. Matt can see me. Yeah, John, I think you better restart your computer. Lee Kitts is in the house. Show Shepherd, meet Lee Kitts. Lee Kitts is the director of this program, this show. And we worked and worked and worked. And it's very exciting to have Albuquerque in the house. Not only Albuquerque, but my dear friend, Lee Kitts. So after the show, we'll be doing a little Q&A if there's time. Is there time? Oh, yay. And thanks, Lee. I try. And there will also be on our website, thebarkandthetree.com, there will be a link to the SoundCloud, which has all of the original songs that Catherine Reed put together. She also blended in a couple of pieces, I think one major piece and perhaps another one that Laura Perard did for many years ago when we first started the show. We've gone on to expand it, and we have a beautiful soundtrack for the show, which of course we couldn't exactly put up here. So we are making it available through thebarkandthetree.com. Hello, Melinda from Sonoma. So glad you're here. We're just kind of puddling along here. Hello. Hi, Ann Arbor. Family in the house. Brother Will. Sister Robin. Oh my gosh, Bill and Ann say hi. Jeb Bartlett and all the cousins. Yay, hello. Oh, it's a family. It's a family affair. Go! Cami Cooper. This is really exciting. Oh my gosh, this is really exciting. Cami, are you in Texas? Okay, I should probably focus. Hi, Bethany from just on the other side of town. Pretty great. Oh, this is fun. I didn't get to do this last week. So we had a wonderful time doing Mother Jones in Heaven last week for the Show Shepherd at Home series, and the link is still up there. And yeah. John's just reminding me to take my glasses off because you can't. I look like a crazy person but I will. I'll be taking them off for the show, and I'll try not to touch my face. I washed, so I get to touch my face. That's right. I haven't gone anywhere. It's the hardest thing. I'm going to put my glasses back on so I can see who's there. And great. Oh, in Texas. Okay, cool. Yeah, we got a few more minutes. Yes, the show will stay up. Wash your hands. I'm going to go wash my hands, blow my nose, wash my hands, and I'll be back in a minute. Yeah, the show will stay up for probably 2 weeks, and then we'll put it up on our Patreon page, which is where we are. See, John's answering the questions. I'm going to step away because he's gone back to the tech desk, and I'm going to see if I can angle this so you don't see my toaster. There, that's a little better. That's what I wanted you to see. There we are. That's it. That's what I wanted you to see. The pretty stuff, not the toaster. Okay. All right. I'm going to go and I'll be back in a couple of minutes. And I hope you enjoy The Bark in the Tree. It's really an honor to be here with Show Shepherd's At Home Theater Series. And do check out who else is coming, who else is playing later tonight. And I believe that I believe that they're going to be doing this for as long as it takes till we're all back out on the boards again. But so big round of applause for Matt and Blair of Show Shepherd, and also big thanks to off Broadway PR. So, all right, hi Schaefer, Paul, and Barbara. All right, I'll be back. Hello. I think it's time to get started, don't you? 1 minute past the hour. Matt, are we good to go? Irish play, Irish tea. All right. The first time I met Eva, she came to me singing, "You are the light and I the shade. If you fade, I too fade. If your voice be heard no more, mine the echo then is o'er. Mine is mute forevermore." And then she said, "Today is the day. Kevin is here. Tonight we are to be married. What in heaven's name is to become of me?" And then I woke up. It was in a dream, you see. I'd fallen asleep reading a book of her poetry published in 1909, shortly before her death. But when I heard her voice, I knew deep down in my bones it was the voice of my great-great-grandmother, Mary Eva Kelly, the Irish poet, and she was calling to me. I knew very little about her. Eva, as she was known, and her husband, Kevin, were legends in my father's family, but okay. All right. My father's family, everyone always told me I was exactly like my father, but he died when I was 12, so I didn't exactly know what that meant, except for a few things. Anyway, all I knew was that my sister and I were the last living descendants of this mysterious couple. But after this dream, there was something about Eva I needed to understand, something I had to understand. So, in May of 1992, I booked a ticket, I packed a bag, and I lit out for Ireland to see if I could find her on her home turf. But, this was before the internet. Well, we had internet, but you couldn't do extensive research, and they weren't that well known outside of their circles. And so I had to wait till I got to Dublin to do any kind of recon. So I went to a bookstore and I found a book on historic homes. And to my amazement, Eva's family home, Lisdona House, was not only listed, but it had become a bed and breakfast. I was beyond excited. I figured out that I had enough money to stay there for a week. So can you imagine? I mean, I was going to be able to walk where my great-great-grandmother walked, stay in her home, breathe the air off the lake that she breathed. So early the next morning, I rented a car and I drove out to the rural reaches of County Galway to a town called Headford, the nearest town to the house. I found a cozy pub. It was about 9 in the morning, so I just took a seat at the bar to see if I could get a cup of coffee and prepare to make contact with Lisdona House, Eva's ancestral home, my ancestral home. Well, I was actually trying to figure out the payphone. It took up an awful lot of real estate at the end of the bar. I don't know if you ever traveled in the UK during that time or in England or Ireland, but the phone boxes were unbelievable. It was this giant green box. And so I very carefully put the coins in, dialed the number, and nothing happened. So I checked the number, and then I checked the phone, and then I read the directions. Dial the number, wait for the party to answer, then put the coins in. Now, I just found that to be very confusing. But if the phone box was confusing, the ensuing conversation set in motion a series of events that took over a decade to unravel. Oh, hello. Yes, hello. Is this Lisdona House, bed and breakfast? Oh, fabulous. Okay, well, listen, I am here in Headford, and I'd like to book a room for 6 nights, please, and I can start today. I can come right over if it's not too much trouble. I understand that it's kind of, it's short notice and everything like that, and I do apologize. What? I'm sorry, what? What did you say? Oh, you're not a bed and breakfast? But it says in this book that I have that it's a... Yeah. Oh, no, ma'am, I'm sorry. I do understand, but it says that you are a bed and... Well, no, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I meant no intrusion. May I? What? Why would you call the authorities? Now, may I ask, am I speaking to Miss Palmer? Yeah, I got your name from the book right next to the number where it says that you're a bed and breakfast. No, I beg your pardon. No, excuse me. No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be rude. No, excuse. What? No. Hey, ma'am. Okay, I'm sorry. Could we start over? I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Vivian Nesbitt, and I am here in Ireland from the States, and I'm doing some research on my great-great-grandmother. And in the books that I've read, it said that she had visited Lisdoonach. Oh, yeah. No, her name was Mary Eva Kelly, and she wrote romantic nationalist poetry for a newspaper called The Nation. It was a very famous. Oh, yeah. No, 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 I'm sorry. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. You would know The Nation. Well, anyway, from what I understand, Eva's maternal uncle, Martin O'Flaherty, lived at Lisdoonach House from about 1830 until about, well, no, it says in this book that I read, it says that they, really, it's all lies? It was then that the righteous owner of the place, Miss Valda Palmer, told me in no uncertain terms that her people had built the place in 1720 and they'd lived there ever since. That no O'Flaherty, no Kelly, no Smith, no Jones had ever set foot at Lisdoonach House. Just Palmer's. And besides, she went on, if you were going to come all this way, wouldn't it be better to research an interesting poet, one that could actually pen good verse? Yes, Miss Palmer, I thank you for that, and I appreciate your concern. Hey, listen, I just had this idea. If you were not too busy, perhaps I could stop around this afternoon to visit you and maybe find out the real story of the place. Yeah, sure, I could bring the book, and then you could call the publisher and set them straight. Miss Palmer hemmed a bit, and then she said, well, since I'd come such a long way, come around 1 o'clock. And then she hung up, leaving me to sort out how to find her. In every epic journey, there is a ferocious gatekeeper, a flesh-eating beast, terrifying, that litters the doorway of its grimy lair with the bones of anyone naive and self-centered enough to come close. It's the beast that destroys the comer and demands that they become something more worthy of this world. Such was Miss Palmer for me. I knew a lot back in those days with my freshly minted MFA. I wanted to write a play about my great-great-grandparents, Mary Eva Kelly and Kevin Isaac O'Doherty, and I wanted to set it against the tumultuous era of the Great Famine, the hunger of 1848. Mary Eva Kelly, my celebrated great-great-grandmother, she lived and wrote romantic nationalist poetry during that time. She fell in love at 18 with a member of the ill-fated Young Irelanders movement. And she promised to wait for her beloved Kevin Isaac O'Doherty when he was convicted of sedition against the crown. Kevin was sentenced to 7 years deportation to Van Diemen's Land, one of the most hideous of all penal colonies in Australia. 7 years. For simply writing articles to the newspapers, asking why the grain and beef grown on Irish soil was being exported to Britain whilst his countrymen starved to death. He promised to return for her, and she promised to wait. And wait she did. Well, I knew a lot back in those days, but I could not get my head wrapped around that. Wait 7 years. See, what I didn't understand was that in Ireland, history is as present as the ground under your feet. Time may pass, but the life force of the past is as strong as the day it happens, and sometimes more powerful than the present. Worlds coexist. And then there was my past. My past. My past was locked and buried, safe behind my heart. It was a concrete bunker that was on fire. It kept me smoldering and alive in dark places. Eva knew how to be constant and true, like all good Irish women. She knew that constancy could quench the pain of separation, that strong principles could feed love better than passion. I know nothing of constancy and strong principles. I'm the daughter of betrayal. And the daughter of a false captain. The daughter whose world went up in flames the day my father announced he wanted to move our family 1,000 miles away so he could be closer to his mistress. I mean, that might be okay in some cultures, but we live in Ohio. The daughter of a man of God, a man of the cloth, a brilliant man, a man so at war with himself, he took final refuge from his conflict in suicide. I don't remember his voice. I do remember May 13th. It was early morning, 1971. I found him in the garage, sitting in the driver's seat of his Chevy Impala, riding the fleet wings through the haze of alcohol, seconal, and carbon monoxide across the Serengeti of his mind into the dark. No, excuse me, miss. Listen, I couldn't help hearing you talk of Mary Eva Kelly. Now, your relative, would she be? Fair play to you. You are welcome here in Headford. That's what, sorry, a small whiskey. Well, no, the bar doesn't open till 10 o'clock, but sure, isn't that almost half an hour away? And I don't suppose how it could hurt. And what with your relative being a local treasure, and I'll here you go. Now fire that into you. But make it quick, okay? You're going to need it if you're going around to visit Miss Palmer. Mind yourself now. She's usually armed. Oh, there's a fair number of us who've nearly taken a bullet for stopping around in a neighborly sort of way, trying to raise a bit of cash for the odd charity due, and to give it up after a time. It was too risky. So be sure there's something between you and herself on your first approach. No good would come from sending you back to America wounded. So, did Mary Eva Kelly live here? Well, of course she did. Oh, yeah, the town's very proud of her. She was a patriot through and through. Oh, what with her poems being published in all the newspapers of the time, Oh, it was a hard time, what with her being so young and all. But, the famine. And she was a strong-hearted girl and a great beauty, too, I hear. And that romance between her and her Kevin. He did come back for her under cover of darkness, even though convicts were not allowed back into the country in those times. No, it was a great risk to himself and to the family. Now, listen, there's about Miss Palmer. Yeah, she's a bit of a revisionist. Well, the author of her own history a bit, if you know what I mean. I mean, aided by the fact that she's more than a bit lula. Don't be fooled by her putting on airs. She's forever thinking she's British aristocracy, but she's not. She was born here just like the rest of us. But well, besides, those days are long gone. No. Well, I know. I'm only saying she's a nice enough person all the same. Well, your real ancestor, no, she did live at another house too. Tis called Ivy House. It's right down there around the corner across from the White Horse Inn. Now, she was born there, I think. If I was you, I would go around to Ivy House and have a look around. Sure, you'd find a good bit of history there. You would take your photographs and call it a day. Sure. Yeah, it's a It's far safer, mind, seeing how it's vacant. Hey, listen, I've got a bit of time. I'll take you around now. Come on. Get your day off to a good start. Oh, my real ancestor. Real ancestor. I felt so loved and so known. Oh, listen. Oh my gosh, that'd be great. I would love to see Ivy House. Hey, listen. Do you mind if I have a little shot of whiskey? That my nerves, from all the. Thanks. Great. We found Ivy House easily enough, and it was just as the barkeeper had said. It was exquisite. A Georgian home, masonry, and on either side were these enormous front windows, and over the gracious entry there was a fan window. Some of the glass was still original. I could see by the bubbles in the panes. Though the place was empty to the walls, it had no sense of being derelict. It was genteel, quiet, with a spacious sense of peace. There was plaster flaking and hints of wallpaper and traces of milk paint. But it was the light that I remember. I wanted to stay forever. Stay forever and imagine what it must have been like. And then suddenly, it was the day after Christmas, 1844. The day that Eva learned that her poem, her very first poem, had been published in the revered rebel newspaper, The Nation. At 14 years old, to have your poetry published for everyone to read, standing at the small wrought iron gate, freezing cold, waiting for the newspaper, taking in a moment of promise, a moment of complete knowledge that, oh, I am a poet. There it is. The leprechaun by Fanula. Oh, they've used me nom de plume. Oh, the lonely quiet glen where the hazel trees are green, and through the bushes hiding, the gentle stream is gliding, murmuring as in reverie, the long, long day so tranquilly. Oh. If I am to be a published poet in the most notable papers of our time, I must have a better nom de plume. The Nation is such a grand name. 'Tis a call to action. My name must radiate grace and constancy. Grace, radiant. I am Eva. Mary Eva Kelly. Eva means radiant in the Irish. I will be Eva from now on. Eva of the Nation. I felt as if I could stay there forever, I could find out what she had. That what is it that she has? That. I mean, she had poetry published when she was 14 years old. I'd already had my first blackout by the time I was 14 years old. What is it that she had? That last whiskey had sort of flipped a switch, and I was feeling a little shaken up, what with one thing and another. And besides, my bartender guide was anxious to get back to work. Now, come on, miss, come on. Listen, I've got to get back to work. No, I'll tell you what. Let's walk back to the pub, and along the way, you can tell me all about your wee play now, okay? Let's go. Oh, well, my play. Oh, yeah. God, my play. Yeah, of course. Listen, you are so nice to remember to ask about that. Wow. The play is just in its infancy, and I'm just here in Galway to see what I can find out. And, it's just such a great story, and what really blows my mind is that she waited 7 years. I mean, who does that? 7 years, that's a fuck of a long time. I mean, really?
I mean, what if he died? Or what if she met somebody else? A lot of things can happen. 7 years is a stupid amount of time. I mean, really, when you think about it. So it just, I mean, well, maybe you understand it. I mean, you were born here. You've been so kind. The bartender stared at me like I was broken. Pity mixed with sorrow. And just enough compassion to make it intolerable. I could feel the pounding pull of shame draining me of the energy to stand. Why was I always so able to say the wrong thing to the right people? I excused myself, saying, "It's time to get back on the road." The bark in the tree. There's a guarantee in the natural world of trees. Their survival depends on the depth of their root and the health of their bark. If something comes between the bark and the tree, or the tree is uprooted by a force greater than it, in either case, the tree will surely die. If something comes between the essence of a person and reality, there's a 50-50 chance they'll shatter like glass on marble, forever fragmented if they survive at all. Or they'll become a supernova, blazing light. Reality was beginning to shift, and I was playing the odds. What the fuck am I doing here? You came to me singing. You planted this song in my head. You are the star that beams on high. In the wave beneath am I. If the star away should flee, oh, what then thy shadow see? Where would I, thy shadow, be? You came to me singing, Eva. Tell me about constancy. How did you wait for a man you hardly knew? I could feel myself losing momentum by the minute. My resolve so easily broken by the notion that my roots had never been. But the lure of an Irish madwoman who just might be armed, how could I resist? The road went from tarmac to gravel to goat track. Tall trees closed in on either side of the entryway, and on either side of the drive were two pillars. And on one pillar, there was a plaque that said, Lisdona House, Member, Historic Registry. Board Fulches certified, bed and breakfast. Well, so at least I knew I was in the right place. So I turned my tiny car up the drive, and I could feel the real world begin to drift and skew. And just a little farther up the drive, there was another sign, but this one was tacked onto a tree, and it said, "This house is guarded by shotgun 3 nights a week. You guess which 3?" And I suddenly realized I was simply, Miss Valda Palmer was just a redneck. I mean, that sign may as well have read, God, Guns, and Guts made America great. Well, now, I may be a tree-hugging pacifist, but I know from rednecks. So I continued up the drive, my inner redneck fueled by whiskey for breakfast, ready to make contact with Miss Valda Palmer, the gatekeeper to my story. Now, as I got out of the car, I was overwhelmed by a chestnut tree, the size of which I have never seen. It was massive. It was protective. It was singing. Under it sat this wraith-like woman. She was skin and bones. She didn't seem to be armed, but I stayed by the car to be sure. She didn't get up, but bid a gentleman bring me over, who disappeared as mysteriously as he had appeared. It was like a visit to Don Corleone. Her hand was strong, cold, brittle. Her eyes steely, like a bird of prey. There was an instant recognition, a sense of ease, a deep and almost shocking drawing in. Did you bring the book? No, I didn't. I'm sorry. You told me it was filled with lies, so I just figured I'd throw it out. It's a bad job. No loss. She smiled, a bit viper-like. And then she poured what I thought was lemonade. I would imagine my great delight when it turned out to be gin and tonics. Offering me a cigarette, she began to set me straight. Oh, I still don't understand why you've come all this way to research an uninteresting poet who devoted herself to a less than successful doctor, who devoted himself to an even less than successful cause. Now, if you really want to know the real Ireland, well, I will tell you about the rebel-rousers who used to come round here trying to rob me and my family things, refusing to pay the rent or do the work they were bound to do. Oh, I do wish, I could show you bullet holes in the very headboard of my bed, shot straight through the window whilst I was sleeping. Ha! I do miss the old days, though. You can still experience them, In South Africa. Oh, yes. We used to visit on state occasions. It was wonderful, simply marvelous. The poor knew their place. And there was a Negro footman behind every chair at dinner parties. Oh, simply wonderful. After several hours of this, I belonged to be shot at. Run off the property like an interloper with an agenda, but instead I just smiled and nodded as the gin and tonics kept flowing and the stories compounded and conflicted. Her sister tragically killed in a riding accident. I later learned that she'd just gone to Dublin to get a job. Her lover tragically killed in the uprising, and the glories of the past, the fear of the present. When we finally went into the house, the weight and darkness of the place crushed around me with a stench of fear and denial. The once beautiful frescoes in the front hall were disappearing into grime. The elegant stair arching to the second floor had broken risers and a busted balustrade. The wide stair to the lower level was boarded up like a tenement. The only sign of life was in the kitchen. And when we sat down to a much-needed pot of tea with scones and butter and jam, the light was beginning to dim, and the rooks were flying to rest in the 300-year-old chestnut tree just outside the window. It was still singing. I could feel her, Eva, pounding in my veins. That tree knew her. These walls knew her. But can I talk about her? Can I ask questions about her? No. My heart was breaking. My head was swimming from the booze. Fury and confusion overtaking me. I began to take my leave, but this time, there was no look of pity here. No, Miss Palmer knew me, and I knew her. A much-needed friend. A partner in crime. A maker of myths. Someone to believe her. Someone to uphold her. Come round tomorrow and I will take you on a drive around the Connemara. a drive around the Connemara with a notorious drunk at the wheel and another budding one in the passenger seat. I could feel myself being drawn down into the depths. I wanted to run. I wanted to stay, so I promised to return. And on the following morning, we embarked. Miss Palmer, dressed in full shooting attire, tweed from top to bottom, with a jaunty cap set upon her head, we navigated the single-track roads with the treacherous combination of tour buses and sheep. Our first stop was Ashford Castle, once a palatial estate, now an exclusive resort open only to a rarefied clientele. Oh, I do love stopping round for a surprise visit. I've known the family since I was a little girl. Simply the best place in Ireland for shooting and fishing. Simply wonderful. Miss Palmer, I really don't think that we should be going in here. It says no entry. There's a guard. He's waving us over. Look out for the bus. Oh, those buses are filled with gawkers, driving people mad. They are. Hello, Charlie. Wonderful to see you. Oh, Miss Palmer, he looks very angry. I don't think his name is Charlie. Oh, always been a card, that one. His family has worked for the castle for generations. Now, listen, we will park the car right here, and they will move it for us. And, I do love stopping around for a surprise visit. It is such fun. Miss Palmer, I really don't think they're going to move the car. I think they're going to tow it. Miss Palmer, where did you get that gun? Miss Palmer had reached behind her seat and pulled out an ancient stalking rifle, left the car in the middle of the main drive, and was walking straight for the entrance to Ashford Castle. Now, several men came to greet her. She met them with a searing air of authority. And of course, when they saw the weapon, they stepped aside. Now, I followed, apologizing, bobbing in this wake of cast-aside waiters and security guards. Now, the only person who could stem her assault on the Grand Great Room was the hotel manager. Ah, Miss Palmer, now, how wonderful to see you. Now, to what do we owe the honor of a surprise visit? Jerry, looking well, sir. Now, listen, get us some drinks and tell Noli that we are here. I've brought an American friend of mine to do some shooting practice. Now, you're looking very well, Jerry. Oh, well, thank you, Miss Palmer. Listen, would you like me to have the steward give that magnificent firearm of yours a quick going over whilst you have your drinks? It could use it by the looks of it. Yes, good idea. Tell Noli that we're here. I've brought this American. He might be able to put her to work, if you know what I mean. Miss Palmer, I do hate to remind you, but Mr. Huggard has indeed passed on. I know you know it, love. You were here at his funeral. Of course I know it. Of course I know it. Get me my drink. I want to sit down. Jerry, after deftly disarming Valda, guided her to a sunny window where she could look out over the gardens and remember the days long gone. Then he turned to me very quietly and he said, "Now, you mustn't misunderstand her. She'll be right as rain in no time." I am so sorry for your loss. Gosh, that's terrible. Was it Mr. Huggard? When did he die? When did Mr. Huggard die? Let me see. That would have been 1968. You look like you could use a cup of tea, miss. 1968? Yes, I could use a cup of tea. With a whiskey back? His voice was soft, like the air. His eyes were steady. And then he asked, "Oh, what is it that you do, miss?" The big question. So, I launched into my spiel again, but this time there was no look of pity or sorrow. This man, it seemed like he could listen to a lifetime in a minute. I felt quieted and comforted as I talked and I sipped my tea. His eyes were dark, dark blue. Hey, Jerry, listen, I'm just wondering, this is so lovely, but they forgot my whiskey. I was wondering if you could, do you mind asking them? Uh, Thanks. Oh, the whiskey. Yeah, sure. You might want to give it a rest, miss. Just going to be a long drive back to Listona House, and someone has to have their wits about them, don't you think? He saw something that I couldn't admit to. I'd been found out. Oh my God, no, that's embarrassing. Yeah, no, 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 no. It's not that I need it. It's just, well, I mean, it's kind of I, I should go. Well, you don't need to go right now, do you think? Yeah, why don't you stay for dinner? You might enjoy it. I know I would. I was in shock. This man had just invited me to stay. I mean, his sincerity slammed into me, breaking open this wild panic. And just then, Miss Palmer came to the rescue. Where is everyone? Jerry? Jerry, where's my gun? Jerry! Where's that American? Oh, yes, Jerry! Oh, Jerry! Oh, yes, Jerry. You should marry her, Jerry. She would make you a fine woman. Yes, Miss Palmer, thank you. But I think I will wait on this. Thank you, Miss Palmer. And now, listen, I'll get your gun and I'll have the car brought round to the front of the castle. And be sure Miss Nesbitt drives you on your way home. All right? He took my hand as we walked back to the car and told me to come back to the Ashford Castle anytime I'd like. I could feel the power of synchronicity swirling. But I was sober, or at least somewhat, and the thought that anybody could look at me in the bold light of day and say, "Stay, please stay," was like a spark to gasoline. With the urgency that only the drowning can understand, I took my leave. Miss Palmer and I drove back to Lisdonna House. And along the way, we stopped at a few more of her favorite haunts and watering holes, and at each one of them, she tried to marry me off to another bartender. It was well after dark when we finally got back to the manor house. I left her there in the dooryard. That miracle of a woman, she could have been the devil incarnate if she'd had more focus. I left her there in the dooryard, singing the praises of her real Ireland, while her stalwart cook waited patiently for her to turn in for the night. I drove down the driveway, sober and alone. I disappeared into the dark, the way Eva disappeared at the very mention of her name in the place that I thought she would appear to me. The dark enveloped me. I disappeared into the dark as if I had never been. Dark on the western edge of Ireland is the edge of a different realm. It belongs to something other. Ancient, magical, and dangerous. Ruled by a different compass. Grand, terrifying, complete, true. Filled with the music of an unseen source. My headlights picked out the road back to my hotel, but the real world that I was returning to had closed its doors to me. I was lost, somewhere, outside of time and space. My bark was cracked and split. My roots were ripped from the soil of a story I believed. The only thing I knew was that I was angry. I was tired of waiting. And I was thirsty. And for 2 more months, time did what time does so well. It sped by. Slipping through the cracks of my consciousness, I was swept away for weeks at a time by the whiskey, the music, the Guinness, the thrill of the terror, and the thrill and the tales of the troubles, and then the lovers in the dark, the music, the whiskey, the Guinness, the music, the whiskey, the Guinness. The ultimate return to America after almost missing my flight because I lost track of time. To the moment I woke up in the bottom of an empty bathtub in a sublet on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, face to face with my past, my mortality, wondering if my ride to the other side would be as fleet of foot as my father's. But in that moment of quiet, that moment of grace, I heard that whisper of a song again. You are the light that beams on high. And I suddenly knew Miss Valda Palmer was no gatekeeper to my story, the beast that destroyed the comer and demanded that they be reformed into something more worthy of the world. I mean, Miss Palmer just held a mirror. The real gatekeeper to my story was me. And I suddenly understood why Eva waited. And then I remembered the rest of the dream. This is what she said. You don't stay quiet for long now, do you? You plague me with questions, but you never listen for the answer. I waited for Kevin for 7 years, and he could always hear me, no matter the distance, but you, I had to wait over a century before you could get quiet enough to hear me. Wait. Ugh, why did she wait? Of course I waited. I'm a poet. It's what I do. I wait and I listen. Your story? It may be tragic. But imagine, if you will, that in 5 short years, 1 out of every 4 of your neighbors, loved ones, countrymen died or were transported. That the once prosperous farmland around you fell fallow from disease and ill use. That people were starving to death right in front of you. That men of stature, with no more concern than for the health of their countrymen, were arrested as criminals. That you had no voice as a woman, as a nation. You had no voice. Those of us who stood in some sort of freedom had to choose to believe in our purpose, to go on believing that the Irish people would be restored, not just in heaven, but here on earth. What was the other option, my dear? Huh? Of course I waited. I waited and I wrote, but there is a world of difference between waiting and inaction. And my waiting was made of sterner stuff than romance. I waited and I wrote. I wrote in praise of those who chose to stand for something, those brave souls imprisoned or transported for standing up to injustice, not bothered by creed or religion, just Ireland as a nation. I wrote so they would know someone was listening. Come, shrink not back with cowards' fears, nor brag as cowards do, nor make lament with words and tears for these, our patriots true. But treasure deep within your breast the oath through good or ill, and stand to them while life shall last, the men of Pentonville. Now keep the watch, my brothers all, let not your courage fail, for deep in gloomy prison walls they do not flinch nor quail. If power there be in love or hate, will not be long until the time will come for which they wait, the men of Pentonville. Go on. You think it's slim verse? I can hear you laughing. You like Esperanza, you think? Well, maybe it is, but it gave them something, you know. I wonder what the women are really like over there in Van Diemen's Land. Well, I suppose I am soon to find out. You see, it's funny that you came through today, Miss Nesbitt, for today is the day. Kevin has returned. He's hidden in the cellar of this grand house. Though criminal and convict, he still be not welcome here in his homeland. He and I are to leave tonight, and once he and I are married, you and I, miss, I am afraid we will part our ways. Oh, once I am married, what will become of Eva of the nation? Tonight, my duties as wife begin. Wife. Oh, good Lord in heaven, I hope it doesn't live up to its reputation. Wife, and mother, and grandmother, and great-great-grandmother, I suppose, seeing how you are here. What will happen to this rebel poet once I am a wife? Some kind soul gave me this book called Mrs. Beaton's Book on Household Management. 'Tis a manual on how to become a Victorian wife. Pity. The very thought makes me spit. Perhaps you should read it, Miss Nesbitt, heathen that you are. I'll leave it to you in your will. Oh, Kevin is waiting for me. We are to embark tonight. Yes. Tonight we are to say farewell to Lisdona House. Farewell to Ireland. Oh. 7 years ago, when Kevin was convicted and transported, we were so young in spirit. Now he has returned to wed the woman who waited, and she is ages old. Today is the day. Kevin is here, and we are to embark tonight as newlyweds and exiles. For 7 years, I've waited for this day. All the while, an exile in my own home, my own country, waiting for my exile to return. And that day has come, and we are reunited. And exile still. It wasn't at all romantic. I have no idea why you think it would be. You are the light, and I the shade. If you fade, I too fade. If your voice be heard no more, mine the echo then is o'er. Mine is mute forevermore. Yes, I did plant that song in your head. But I had to. It was the only way I could get your attention. You see, the time for this rebel patriot 'tis over. For wife I am to be. But you, what are you waiting for? Oh, a storm Macri, of course. It's not Mrs. Beaton's that you need. What you need now is me. Here. Now use them well now. Go on. Take them and use them. time for this rebel patriot is over. My waiting is over. Kevin has returned. You are the breath in which I breathe. In your heart, my own I sheathe. If you live, I live on. If you go, I am gone. I too vanish, cold and wan. I learned a lot in my journey to find Eva. At the start, what I didn't understand was that history is as present as the blood in your veins. Worlds do coexist if you listen. You are the light and I the... I'm not so sure that's true, for Eva's light shone brighter for Kevin's absence, and the blazing light of her constancy overthrew the shadowed darkness of her soul. Will she be remembered? Will I be remembered? Will any of us be remembered? Time will tell if I will ever be half the woman that she was. But what I learned was that to become shattered like glass on marble was easy. To become a light in the world, that takes patience. I can wait. Hello. I have my glasses back on so I can see us. Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you so much to Show Shepherd, Blair Russell, Matt Schicker, and Paul. I'm going to go in and thank you, you guys. And I am really thrilled to be here. There's a lot of thank yous, and there's some shows coming up. There's one starting, I think, at 8:30. I'll certainly be tuning into that. So please go to showshepherd.com/live and check out the next person who's going to be up, and that it should be really great. Hi, Adina. So if anybody has any questions, thank you. Just turning on my phone so I can look up what the next people are on the next thing. Oh, I love you too. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Just a little bit about solo work. I had a really interesting experience developing this. Thank you, sweetheart. I had a really interesting experience where I had to adapt the top half of the show, the top beat of the show, to make it work for this type of experience. And I think what we might have found was like a perfect fix to something that has never worked very well in the show. So thank you, Blair and Matt, for giving me this opportunity to fix something that I'd never been able to fix. Oh, thanks, Lee. Lee, our director, is on. So if you have any questions for her, we've got everybody. Oh my gosh. This is great. Thank you so much.
So, well, if there aren't any questions, I am going to go and have dinner. Thank you so much. Please do check out the other, check out showshepherd.com and see all the wonderful work that they're doing, particularly if you are a playwright or somebody looking to develop a piece. They are absolutely top notch. And oh yes, you can support the artists. We have a Venmo link, and we also have a PayPal link that's in the description of this page. It's also on the front page of our website, The Bark and The Tree, all lowercase, .com. And we joyfully accept tips and support. This is our livelihood. This is my livelihood, and this is John's livelihood. And of course, being stuck at home, this is a really great thing. Oh, the next show at 8:30 is Betty Davis Ain't for Sissies by Jessica Scherer, and that is going to be really fun. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Anyway, thank you. All right, all. Bless you for coming out. Stay safe. Wash your hands. But above all, know that you are loved beyond measure in all ways, always. And I really appreciate you being here. Good night.